Do I move this? Hello. My name is Rachel Ives. I'm with Heart of Ellsworth, and I'm a resident here in Ellsworth as well. I just want to thank you all so much for being here and tuning in to the live stream as well. We have 6 candidates with us today, and the crowd is filling in. Now, I'm just going to start with a quick description of Heart of Ellsworth, which is one of the organizations that helped put on today's event. Heart of Ellsworth is an economic and community development organization that champions the downtown district. We're nationally affiliated with the Main Street America program and members of the Main Downtown Center. Thank you all so much for coming to our 6th annual Meet the Candidates event. I want to thank you for doing your part to be an active, civically engaged public and for taking time to learn about the 2023 candidates for Ellsworth City Council. In times like these, when many of us feel afraid for the well-being of our society, it's not easy to show up every day and participate in American democracy. So if you're here today or tuning in from elsewhere, I want to commend you for your faith in democracy, diplomacy, and yourselves as citizens of the community. If it was simply the beautiful posters that brought you in tonight, I want to thank you and also say that the painting in those posters and on social media is titled The Singing Flag by Joy Halstead. It was donated to the Ellsworth City Hall by Richard and Helen Dudham from their private collection. You can see the painting and learn more about it in the 2nd floor auditorium at City Hall. Now, before I thank the people who make this event possible, I have a quick note about the candidates you see on stage and on the ballot. Noah Robidoux has formally withdrawn from the race. We wish him well and hope that he and other young people in Ellsworth feel encouraged to participate in local elections this year and every year to come. Each year, Heart of Ellsworth partners with the Ellsworth American and the City of Ellsworth to produce this informative event. Now I'd like to thank a few people and organizations who help make Meet the Candidates possible. Thank you to our longtime partner, Ellsworth American, and tonight's moderator, Cindy Wood. Thank you to the Grand Theater staff, particularly Nick Turner, Kim Fitch, and Peter Miller. Thank you to the City of Ellsworth's IT staff, including Jason Ingalls and Nate Burkhard. Thank you to the Heart of Ellsworth board members and community volunteers, particularly Peter Leone for decorating the stage this evening, Phyllis Young for organizing audience questions, Lucille Poulin for keeping time, Maggie and Patrick for greeting our guests at the door, and also the grand volunteers greeting in the lobby as well. Next, I want to thank the Heart of Ellsworth Executive Director, Cara Romano, for organizing this event for the 6th year in a row. It's such a service to the community to meet our candidates and get to know how they will lead our city. Last, but certainly not least, I'd like to say a big thank you to this year's sponsor, Desert Harvest. They're just across the street, and they help manufacture urologic, pelvic, and sexual health products. So I want to welcome to the stage Heather Florio, 2nd generation owner of Desert Harvest.
Thank you, Rachel. I appreciate that. So Desert Harvest really believes in the democratic process, and that's why we wanted to be a part of this. For those who don't know, Desert Harvest has been around for 30 years, providing pelvic, sexual, and urological health products worldwide. And we're just in the building across the street. Definitely stop by anytime if you'd like. Thank you all for attending tonight. Cara asked me to kind of start this introduction here. This is a nonpartisan production, aims to provide an educational platform for the voting residents of Ellsworth. Events like these raise awareness of local issues and connect community members to participate in our local democracy. They allow us to learn about our candidates, what they stand for, and how they might represent us. Every candidate running in the seat here on this for the Ellsworth City Council has been invited to participate in the event this evening. Thank you all for being here and for participating in our legislative process. This evening is an opportunity to strengthen civil political discourse in our community. These city council positions, like all municipal positions, are nonpartisan. Small towns and cities are places where anyone can enter the political arena to make a difference in their communities. During this time in American politics, events like these are an excellent way to strengthen the democratic process, build trust in our public institutions, and allow citizens to start to make the changes that they want to see in their towns. As Ellsworth residents, it's your individual privilege and responsibility to participate in our local municipal democracy, ensuring greater community engagement in guiding the future governance of the city. Tonight, it is also the responsibility of each of us to remain respectful to each other, to not only listen thoughtfully, but to try to remain open to others' point of views. Though they may be differing views, we must trust that each candidate wants what is best for our city. The opinions expressed during this event are those of the candidates. They do not reflect the opinions or views of Desert Harvest, the Ellsworth American, or the Heart of Ellsworth. Rather, each of these entities serves merely to provide a platform to get to know these candidates as a democratic service to our community. Important reminders: ask that everybody, if they could, please turn off their cell phones. No booing. And please hold applause till the end. Thank you all for your time, and I would now like to introduce Cindy Wood, the Managing Director of the Ellsworth American, and your moderator for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather, and for everybody coming out tonight on the stage and in the audience, and to Heart of Ellsworth, who does all the legwork to make this happen. I'm going to go over the rules real quickly for the evening. We're going to start with introductions. Each candidate is going to get 2 minutes to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about themselves. After that's done, we're going to switch into 3 prepared questions that they all received via email before tonight, and we're going to alternate the order of who responds when, so nobody has to go first every time or last every time. It's not a debate. If somebody wants to respond to something that somebody else said, they just need to wait till their next turn, and then you can weigh in on that issue. As Heather mentioned, save your applause to the end. It takes up a lot of time to clap in between. We received some audience questions in advance via email, and I believe there's also some cards that have been handed out in the box that you can put those in if you have some questions that you'd want to add to the mix. So that being said, we'll jump right into the introductory statements. Mark, would you like to get us started?
Sure. My name is Mark Blanchett. I'm a former counselor here in Ellsworth. I was on the board for on the council for 9.5 years. Previous to that, I was on the planning board for 2 years. I'm concerned that coming up in the immediate future of the lack of experience that's going to be coming up on the council. Gene would be senior man with 3 years of experience, and with everything coming up, the search for the city manager, the new lease coming up for the YMCA on the Moore School, union negotiations are also coming up next year in '24. And not to mention the comprehensive plan and the search for the city manager. Those are all very important items that need to be addressed. And I have the institutional knowledge because of my experience serving the city in the past. And if I can be of service to the community, then I will. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Jean, would you like to tell us about yourself?
My name is Gene Lyons. I Actually, I'm a construction worker on a concrete pump truck. I feel I have, over the past 3 years, grown a lot to realize what the job and title of a counselor is. So I think I'm fair and honest. And well, I look forward to all you voting for me on November 7th.
Thank you. Patrick.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Patrick Lyons. I'm a lifelong Mainer. I'm the son of 2 public school teachers. I grew up in South Portland and graduated from South Portland High School, graduated from Bowdoin College, and then the University of Maine with a master's degree, and then I went to law school at Maine Law. I'm a land use and municipal attorney with the law firm Eaton Peabody here in Ellsworth on Main Street, but I have a practice that's statewide, and I represent and advise municipalities throughout the state of Maine. My wife, Courtney Collum, is a professor at the College of the Atlantic in Bar Harbor. Courtney and I moved to Ellsworth in 2016 and quickly fell in love with this community. We're fortunate that we're growing our family here in Ellsworth. Our son was born in 2019 at the hospital here, and then my wife's parents moved here in 2021, and my father just moved here this past summer. Because Ellsworth has given so much to me, I've tried to give back. I've served on the board of Healthy Acadia since 2017 and on the Ellsworth Planning Board since 2020. I love Ellsworth, and that's why I'm running for City Council. It's a wonderful community of people, businesses, and organizations, and I want to work to ensure that Ellsworth is a thriving community for my son and for all our families. Looking at Ellsworth through my son's eyes actually helps me determine what I think is important for city government. He sees Ellsworth's firefighters and police officers as superheroes. His teachers are some of the most important people in his lives. He loves playing at Knowlton Park, swimming at the Y, and going to the library. These are the services, people, and organizations that make this community what it is, and as city councilor, I'll work to support them. I've also had the opportunity to get to know...
That's time. Oh. Sorry. I forgot to mention, I'm supposed to cut people off at 2 minutes. Thank you, Patrick. John, you're up.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name's John Linehan. I'm 75 years old, so I looked around. I think I'm the senior person here on the stage today. But I've grown up. I was born here in Ellsworth. I've lived here all my life. Graduated from Ellsworth High School in 1966. As I was talking with Patrick earlier, I'm excited to say, I wished it wasn't this way to say this, but we were on the last state championship boys basketball team here in Ellsworth High School. And we've been close a couple of years since then, but haven't quite pulled it off. Thankful that the girls did pull it off this last year. But I love Ellsworth. I've seen a lot of changes over my time that I've been here. I'm interested in seeing it roll back the clock, if you will, a little bit. I know we can't go way back, but I'm a history buff, and I like the way our city was and the way it ran 20, 30 years ago like that, when it was a smaller city. And it was easier to keep track of our citizens and the things that were going on in the town. My dad was on the city council. Several other people in those years were on the city council. The town council always was represented by excellent business people here in the city of Ellsworth. And I think we've kind of gotten out of that format over the last few years. And I go around, I speak statewide. I'm a Christian, I'm a constitutionalist, and I'm a patriot. And I go around, I speak at rallies. I always have the United States Constitution in one hand, and I have the Bible in my other hand. And those are the two documents that our nation was founded on, our states were founded on it, and the city of Ellsworth has a strong heritage of coming from biblical constitutional backgrounds. And I see those things being destroyed right now in our society. And whether it's locally or whether it's statewide or nationally, it needs to be addressed. So I'm excited to be running for the city council. We've been involved with several business dealings and property ownerships over the years. Developed the Mill Mall when it used to be a Regal textile mill and it was closed down. And my dad and I bought that at an auction and started out that to be the Mill Mall today. We've owned several other developments here in the area where there's many successful businesses right now. So I have a heart for business.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Ruth, your statement.
Well, my name is Ruth Moore. I am a practitioner here in Ellsworth. We just moved in about 3.5 years ago. We have an intergenerational history with this community through my husband's family. I guess the biggest reason why I'm running is because of the sense of Nazili. And for those of you who don't speak Abenaki, that means a greater sense of community. And when we look at who we are and where we're at in this community, there are many things that have me concerned. As a business owner, as a mother, I've seen this community divided in so many areas, in so many ways. So my hope as a city councilor is to start opening up, creating the transparency where there needs to be transparency, and listening to the people. So I have these flyers up back if you wanted to know a little bit about me and about what we stand for. But when we look at our community and we look at the experience, I will say that although I don't have local legislative experience, I have worked on the national and international and state levels creating legislation, the Ruth Moore Act, the NDAA of 2016, and also in the state with Legislative 1384 and LD 364 for practitioners. The biggest thing that I want to look at as a council member is understanding the sense of community. We are all interconnected, and our people, our citizens, need to have their voices heard. And I truly found the power of this community back in May when I was in a very serious car accident, and I counted no less than 40 people stopping, asking, and getting help. And now it's my turn to give back to the community.
That's time. Thank you. Nancy, your statement.
Thank you. I'm Nancy Smith, and I guess I'll start by saying I'm not running for office because I think I have all the answers, but I'm really good at asking the right questions. When the City Council considers actions, we need to think about what's the goal? Is this the best strategy? What might the other impacts be of this decision? Is it cost effective? And most importantly, is it the right thing to do? I'm also not one to sit back if I think that I have an opportunity to make a difference. I know many strategies that can answer the challenges that Ellsworth is struggling with, and I'll get into those in the future questions. But I believe that as one of 7 councilors, I'll be able to bring these tools and these resources to fellow councilors, to the staff, and to the people of Ellsworth. As I've been going door to door on Saturday mornings, I'm sharing what I bring to the council if elected: experience, integrity, and common sense. I have experience at the municipal level and the state level. Here in Ellsworth, in my role on the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee, and when I lived for nearly 30 years in Monmouth, Maine, I was on several town committees there, in addition to 8 years in the Maine legislature. My full-time job is leading a statewide nonprofit that gives me managerial and financial experience that would be helpful here. For integrity and common sense, this is in how I treat people and how I approach life. It comes from 30 years of farming, which is running a small business, and in raising 3 kids into adulthood as good, decent human beings. I'll ask for one of your 2 votes. And in this process, I've gotten to know Patrick Lyons, and I'll tell you he's getting my 2nd vote. I'm at the end of the ballot because it's listed alphabetically, so I'll just ask you, look at all the names in the ballot before you check off your choices.
That's time. Thank you, Nancy. All right, we're going to jump right into the prepared questions. The first one is, what are the greatest challenges facing Ellsworth, and how would you address them? Patrick, do you want to start that one?
Sure. Do I have a choice?
Nope.
I think one of the big issues facing all communities in Maine is trust, and it's trust with each other and trust in our government, our local government, state and federal. As a municipal attorney, I know how municipal governments are supposed to function, what they can do and what they can't do. I want to make Ellsworth City's council work towards having everyone trust our council. And this requires transparency and actively engaging with the community to invite comment and to invite participation with the city government. In doing so, I want to listen to everyone's problems, I want to listen to everyone's ideas, and then I want to find compromise within the community and within the council to work to solve problems. The other major challenge facing Ellsworth, and again everywhere, is housing. 2 years ago, as I said, my in-laws moved to Ellsworth, and my father did this past summer. Finding housing for them was just a nightmare, especially housing that's affordable. The rising cost of housing is also impacting our local small businesses' abilities to function. Without people living here that can't afford to live here, they don't have enough staff to run these businesses. In working on the planning board, I've worked to pass, and approve projects that met the city's ordinances. By joining the city council, I hope to help the city council address its ordinances to see if there's ways that we can help promote and encourage more housing development, both good and quality housing development in Ellsworth. But the city also needs to explore other options, and that's including regulating short-term rentals. It includes trying to use incentives to have year-round rental properties be constructed.
That's time.
Thank
You
you.
guys are making me be strict. Ruth, what are the greatest challenges facing Ellsworth, and how would you address them?
I think Ellsworth is an incredible community, and I know that we all have our challenges. Some of the biggest challenges that I've seen are public education, city operations, business concerns for Main Street, our public lakes and our natural resources, affordable housing, and most assuredly, affordable and equitable access to medical care. So there is no one easy answer for this, and as Nancy said, I don't have all the answers, but I do work incredibly well with community members as well as leaders, and I believe that every person has something that they can offer to help resolve these issues. There was an issue or mention about experience coming into the board. Well, I think that every person has a rich variety of experiences. We may not agree with them, we may disagree with them, but having respect and tolerance for the experience and the resources within our community are perhaps the largest things that we need to focus on to resolve this. So I think the biggest thing that I would ask people to resolve these issues is, how does this issue benefit you? How does it benefit the community? And what are you willing to do to help resolve these issues to move our city forward?
So, thank you. Mark, what are the greatest challenges facing Ellsworth?
First and foremost, the search for a city manager. Without the right person, the city would be akin to a rudderless boat without a captain. The right person will initiate ideas and plans and bounce them off the council, department heads, and when available, his peers and connections they've made through their professional careers. And of course, he'd be bouncing them off the residents of Ellsworth. Also, an ambulance service to serve the city is paramount. No longer can we rely on Northern Light to have one of their units ready to answer the call at a moment's notice. No longer can we rely on an ambulance unit that's staged 15 miles up Route 1A in Lucerne, waiting in case there's the possibility of a call. One of my pet concerns is safe walkability in Ellsworth. There are a lot of people like myself who do a lot of walking within the city. We need to replace sidewalks that we've lost, that we've let literally disappear and become part of people's yards. Sidewalks that were once paved and maintained. We need to ensure the walking trails extension goes as planned from Birch Avenue to LL Bean, and we need some safe marked crosswalks with lights to safely get across High Street. In essence, safe, walkable, and maintained sidewalks and paths need to rise to the same level of importance as our roads. Lastly, in a long list of needs is transportation infrastructure. The roads are crowded and seemingly getting worse, both in the number of vehicles and in the road condition.
That's time. Thank you. John, the greatest challenges facing Ellsworth, and how would you address them?
Thank you. The greatest challenge facing Ellsworth is taxes. And when I received my tax bill this last year, I looked at it and it went up almost 18%, 17.87%. It went up. And I said, that just can't happen. And I talked to a lot of people in that community living paycheck to paycheck. And people are really hurting financially. So I think the biggest challenge here in the city of Ellsworth is how to get a handle on the city's spending. I always go by the plan that your spending determines your ending. And I think here in Ellsworth, we can't continue to go at the level of spending we're going. Taxes can't keep going up. And there's only one way to curb taxes, and that's by reducing spending. I've made my whole campaign, that's the major thing that I want to focus on. I talked with the finance director this past week, spent about, probably back and forth with emails, quite a bit of time with her, and I wanted to see about how our audited statements were coming. I don't know how many people are familiar, but we just finally got our audited statement for 2021 several months ago, and even now just are now getting our audited financial statement for 2022, which is now on the city website. So finances are a key issue in that. I don't think we do anything else but get a handle on that. It's about prioritizing and evaluating the spending. So my goal would be to reduce taxes right across the board, and this all can happen if you monitor your spending. I spent a lot of time, I've got a folder with me right now, it's probably about 4 inches long, that's the city budget. And I will go by every item, line by line, to determine and prioritize what Ellsworth citizens can afford and what we can't afford. And I have no problem making the tough decisions, just like you do in your own household. So some things you can't have. Some things are greeds, not needs. And we need to have the city of Ellsworth running on its needs and reduce the taxes as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, folks, I'm getting over a cold. Jean, same question.
I think infrastructure has suffered over the past 15, 20 years anyway. And we've put more and more each year I've been on into roads, paving, buildings that have been deteriorating. I think we need to continue that trend and not go back to spending 1/10 of what we're spending now, and continue and try to get caught up. There's 96 miles of road in Ellsworth that we maintain, and the cost of paving at about $1 million a mile. We've got a lot of catching up to do. And we can't do it all at once, but we need to start doing more. I could echo some of the other stuff, but there's not much sense.
Thank you. Nancy, greatest challenges facing Ellsworth.
Thank you. As you've heard from the others, there's internal and external challenges. There are a lot of questions about staff turnover and the financials. I hear concerns from a number of people about these issues. It's ongoing, and it has risen to the point where it needs attention from the council. Now, council should not be involved in the day-to-day operations, but it will be key in hiring a new city manager. The external challenges: how do we manage growth while continuing to keep what we love about this city? Housing choices, traffic management, water and sewer. How's that for a sexy platform for your campaign? But it's not sexy when it's not functioning anymore. There are immediate needs in housing, food insecurity, and addiction. I have ideas I'd love to explore with fellow council members. Short-term rentals, how do we differentiate valuation based on use, where residential property values don't go up just because the house across the street sold as a short-term rental as a commercial property. Pre-approved building types for a variety of ranges of housing. investing in social and educational institutions that raise the aspirations and engage people of all ages and economic spectrum. Regional transit options make it cheap, easy, and popular to use transit, and it'll happen and alleviate traffic for those that want to stay in cars. Capitalize on the opportunities. If you watched the City Council meeting last night, Economic Development Director Jana Richards outlined community development block grants that can be used for exactly these goals. Let's reward that kind of innovative thinking as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is, what is your vision for Ellsworth's future, and what will be the council's role in trying to make it happen? Jean, do you want to start?
Can you repeat that again?
Sure. What is your vision for Ellsworth's future, and what will be the council's role in trying to make it happen?
So, and again, getting buildings repaired that belong to the city that are in disrepair, roads. And then the council has to try to get this funding and serve it to the citizens of Ellsworth, which is next to impossible sometimes. And try to get them to understand that without paying taxes, you're not going to get anything fixed or accomplished. And I know everybody wants to save, but sometimes, say over the course of 10 years, if you paid a tiny bit more every year, you would save having a year like this year where the taxes went up 18%. If they had gone up 1% each year over the last 10, it might have gone up a lot less this year. Infrastructure that got left leaking, that's costing 5 times as much now to fix because we didn't put the little bit into it. I mean, a lot, or a little bit compared to what it is this year. That's all.
Thank you. Nancy, your vision for Ellsworth's future.
I was wondering when I was going to not be last. We are in this moment of time, and we need to get it right. We can't stop change. We can't go back 30 or 40 years. But we can make big strides in determining what this change is going to look like and what it's going to feel like. We can build economic opportunities while protecting what's special about Ellsworth. There's tremendous power in being the county seat, in being a regional service area, in being a place where people want to live and work. Quality of life is an economic driver. Tourism and hospitality are economic drivers. We need to encourage all of this while addressing, again, the immediate needs that we're seeing. The council role, again, hire an outstanding manager and support that person fully. Set a collaborative and positive tone and expectations for professionalism and an appropriate level of transparency. If we start from a shared goal that Ellsworth will continue to be a place where people choose to live and can afford to live, we can go great strides. At last night's city council meeting, if you watched, we saw tension between two businesses, composting and high-end hospitality. Both add value to the city. The municipal role is in enforcing existing ordinances so that both can exist and prosper. Thank you.
Mark, your vision for Ellsworth's future, and what will be the council's role in trying to make it happen?
A city, excuse me, a city that people will seek out to live. A city that people will seek out for the quality of our schools, and a city that people will seek out for career-oriented jobs and recreation. The council's role in this is to foster the growth of privately owned businesses and corporations, whether that be retail, manufacturing, or within the science sector. The council also needs to assure that this growth and development is extremely well managed from conception to reality. And when the growth happens, the council needs to step back and let it grow more. All of these opportunities need employees, and with those employees come families. We need to provide a clean playground and play area for the children, recreation area, and other opportunities so the children of Ellsworth have activities to look forward to in their lives here.
Thank you. Patrick, your vision for Ellsworth's future.
Thank you. I want Ellsworth to be a safe, nurturing, and thriving community. Safe in that we have well-staffed and well-supported fire, EMS, and police services. We also need good roads, reliable utilities, and access to broadband for everyone. Nurturing in that we have well-staffed and well-funded schools that provide healthy and engaging environments for all of our children. Strong schools are a key factor for people when they determine whether to move to or to stay in Ellsworth. Strong schools also mean a strong local economy. Thriving in that the city acknowledges it is growing because people want to live and work here. We need to find smart, proactive ways to plan for this growth and to support our residents and small businesses. The city's role in making all this happen is leadership. This means seeking input from the community, listening to all perspectives, and finding compromise. The city also needs to partner with many local businesses, nonprofits, and other municipalities in the region in order to see how we can leverage our resources. This means seeking grants, federal and state funding, and other opportunities to help maximize our tax dollars for infrastructure projects, business development, and housing. Thank you.
Thank you. John, your vision for Ellsworth's future.
My vision for Ellsworth's future starts with new leadership. That's why I'm running for the Ellsworth City Council. I believe that anybody that's an incumbent that's been involved with the city in the city council previous right now, I believe in term limits, and I think it's time for fresh leadership here in Ellsworth. So I'm hoping that along with myself, there'll be another new city councilor. And I think the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over and expect no results. So I think it's time to get new people on the council that are inexperienced with the common thing, the way we've been doing it, because that's created problems in our community. It's created the tax burden that we have. It created a lot of disunity over the past year. For example, the disunity, there was almost at every city council meeting over the new police station and decisions of that type. And I think, as I was talking with a couple of the members up here earlier, we're going to disagree on some issues, but let's disagree agreeably, and let's have a cup of coffee afterwards. I don't think that's happened on our Ellsworth City Council. There's been a lot of fighting, a lot of bickering, a lot of arguing, and I think it starts out for the future with new people on board, new leadership that will head Ellsworth in a proper direction. I think we've got a great past that we can build on. I think we've had some great leadership in the past, and Ellsworth is an unusual community with its location here in the county seat that's here in Maine. And I'm sorry, I thought you said something. So I would like to see a whole new council and a different direction heading, especially with our spending and prioritizing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ruth, what is your vision for Ellsworth's future?
I think my vision for Ellsworth's future is not about me, it's about what our community wants and needs. I would like to see Ellsworth be a community where businesses are welcomed, where families and our friends feel safe. In my line of work, I hear people tell me they don't feel safe. I think that we need to have a self-sustaining economy rather than relying upon taxes, which are certainly an issue. I think we need to start looking beyond the box. I think we need to look at alternative funding resources. Community development block grants and other types of initiatives are only part of the puzzle. We also need to realize that while tourism definitely has a place, it can't be something that we rely on as heavily as we have. And certainly when we look at the experience of COVID in 2020, we saw many families go under. We saw many losses in the community because we relied on tourism and tourism wasn't there for us. We need to have trusted leadership in our community. And again, When we look at our city council, 7 members, that's approximately 420 years of experience that is there to guide our city. Again, I think the biggest thing is for city council, they can make this happen by looking at different options in the community for the families, for the residents, and for the businesses.
Thank you. All right, next question. What qualities and experience should counselors be seeking in the next city manager? Ruth, why don't you start that one?
Okay.
No timeout.
No timeout. So I think the biggest quality that we need to have as city councilors is we need to have approachability. We need to be able to speak, as Rudyard Kipling once said, with the common man as well as walking with kings. We need to be able to maintain a line of communication between all of our residents, not just our businesses, not just the people in certain economic tax brackets, but we need to reach out to everybody and have accessibility. There needs to be trust. And for that matter, we need to have transparency. As a community, we're looking for our leaders to guide us. And when we have transparency, that means that the community is involved in major decisions. That means the community has answers as to why their taxes are going up. Certainly the city council members, they have the opportunity and the experience to discuss these things, but that doesn't convey to the community. I think that when we bring our experience to the table as council members, the integrity of standing by what we say what we mean what we say. Having trust and honesty and openness and accessibility, and also having wisdom and leadership. We don't react for our personal needs. What we do is we consider the needs of the community, and we put those needs forward.
Thank you. Patrick, what qualities and experiences should counselors be seeking in the next city manager?
The council sets the policies for the community, and then it hires a manager to go carry those policies out. So I think before the council can determine who to hire for city manager, it first needs to determine what its vision is for Ellsworth. And then it needs to find a city manager that will go execute that vision for Ellsworth. And whoever that city manager is, also, one of the most important things for them is that they need to have experience managing and leading people. The employees of the city of Ellsworth are the folks that actually get all the work done. And ultimately, they're the ones that, all these policies we're talking about up here today, they're the ones that go out and do it. So we need a leader that they can trust, and we need a leader that gives them the support they need to do their job. Whoever the next city manager is, they also need to have passion for Ellsworth and a desire to help solve problems for the people that live here, to improve everyone's lives. Thank you.
Nancy, your thoughts on the next city manager search?
Thank you. I think, again, it's looking at internal and external challenges. We need someone from the start who has experience with municipal government. This is not an entry job position for a city manager. I like the way Patrick phrased it. The council working with residents sets the vision. Execution comes with the manager and then the work with the staff. Skills in managing conflict are going to be very important, as well as empowering and leading the staff. In my role on the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee, I see that the planning staff is engaged and they understand how important their roles are in adding value to that process. Equity, diversity, and inclusion, both in training and expertise, but also a personal commitment to making sure that every person is welcome in Ellsworth as resident and as staff. Understanding the unique financial systems of municipal government is going to be important. And I think a solid understanding of municipal, community, and economic development tools and knowledge and connections with outside sources and partnerships For instance, USDA Rural Development has tremendous resources that they can bring to Ellsworth. I'd also like this person to be a decent human being. And I think it's incredibly important that this person have a sense of humor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, what qualities and experience should we be seeking in the next city manager?
I'm looking for an active listener, a thinker, and a doer. I would prefer someone with the extensive experience to carry on the works of our current manager, Glenn Mosier, who has done a fantastic job as he transitions back to full-time police chief. I want an out-of-the-box thinker and one who isn't afraid to say, have you ever thought about doing this or that, and then doing it?
Thank you. John, your thoughts?
Appreciate this question very much. I just went online this afternoon to the City of Ellsworth website, and I noticed on the city manager they had the requirements they were looking for the next city manager. And I can see why that they've had problems in the past with city managers, because their description of what they're looking for isn't what we need at all. It's focused on municipalities, and what was lacking as I went all the way through it was there's no requirement for somebody who's had some business experience. The city of Ellsworth is a business. It's a big business. There's 100 employees, roughly 120 or 30 part-time employees, so 200 people, 250 people. And it needs to be run like a business efficiently. I don't think it has been. I just looked at the stuff in there they were looking for. Financial stability. Well, I've already shared with you that the audited statements were late coming in, and we finally just got the one for 2022. A city manager should be on top of that, and they should know where their finances are. Good business people know daily where their business is or their municipality is. It's called the daily operating control. We don't have that here. There should be community relations and staff leadership. We've had an excessive amount of turnover here in Ellsworth, in my opinion, with the staff here in Ellsworth. And then I looked down through, there was another one, should be an integral part of the community. Well, I believe our city manager should live in the city of Ellsworth. How else are you going to be an integral part of the community? So the city council, these are the guidelines they were looking for, and I thought it was lacking somebody with business experience who wanted a degree in this, a degree in that, but no practical business experience. And I think that's what's sadly lacking here in the city of Ellsworth. So I encourage you to elect new councilors that will focus on business principles. Everything rises and falls on leadership. The person that the city council hires needs to work with them and have the backbone to stand up when the council is heading them in the wrong direction. So I want somebody with business experience that will step up and do the right thing in Ellsworth. And
That's
we do
time.
need a new city manager.
Thank you. Jean, what should we be looking for in the next city manager?
So, gotta be careful how to say stuff. So, I'm totally against looking for a new city manager. I believe we have a city manager that's done a great job. He's dual role, doing two jobs, which has saved nearly $500,000 in the last 3 years. I say we sign the same person as the dual role and save $500,000 to $750,000 in the next 2 years. He's done a great job. He's gotten a lot of ridicule from people who have no idea what he's done for a job. They listen to other people in the community. Nobody has the right answer. He's perfect? No, probably not perfect, but he's perfect for me. In my eyes, he's done a great job. He stands up for the employees. He has their back, if something's going down. He has their back. I say we sign him again. We save that money. We talk out both sides of our mouths about saving money, and then we're going to spend another nearly $1 million over the next 3 years hiring city managers that we don't need because we have a great one. That's all I got to say.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll move into the submitted questions. I get some in advance via email, and then I think some folks are helping me gather some that you guys have submitted tonight. The first submitted question: at least one candidate has campaigned on lowering taxes and even decreasing inflated gas and food prices. What costs are in the council's control, and what, if anything, would you propose cutting? Please be specific. John, do you want to start that one?
I would, but I didn't hear the questions. If you could repeat that, I'd appreciate it.
At least one candidate has campaigned on lowering taxes and even decreasing inflated gas and food prices. What costs are in the council's control, and what, if anything, would you propose cutting?
I brought the city budget with me tonight, and the way to start doing it is you need to have a line-by-line item review of everything that's in there. It all gets back to spending at whatever level you're talking with. Everything starts locally, and some of the things that you're talking about obviously will be done on a different level, a state level or a national level, but it starts with spending. So I'm running for the Ellsworth City Council because I will go through every single line item in the budget and I will prioritize. And when you do that, you're going to take out the things that you don't need, and you might want it, but you don't need it, and you can't afford it. You have to live within a budget, just like we do individually. The city needs to do the same thing. So it takes time to do that. I'm willing to spend the time to go through and do that. I have all the figures right here. I'd be glad to share them with anybody if you want to take the time to go through them with me, because I'll go line by line if elected. And I hope to be elected. I've had a lot of experience in running multiple businesses that have done exactly the same thing. I understand finances and how to get our expenses in control. So thank you very much.
Ruth, what costs are in the council's control, and what, if anything, would you propose cutting?
I tend to agree with John on many of the business principles for our city. I believe the council has the responsibility to understand what the budget is. I think they also have the responsibility to say, I think this doesn't sound right, I think I need more information, or I think this needs to be examined or audited. Can you justify why this expense is coming to us? I think the council also has the responsibility to look at alternative funding sources. Certainly there are grants out there, there are different types of cost share programs that the state brings in. But when we look at the whole picture of what the council can do and what the council can bring forward, we need to understand the council is limited by what we already have and where our vision is going to go, where our expenses are. Changes don't happen overnight. Changes take time to develop. But when we start getting an understanding of our budget and we start knowing how to move forward in a productive way, I think that we can make the changes to bring to the city and to start, changing the culture of where our financials are. Our taxes are accelerated. As Mr. Lyons said, do we want to pass these costs on year by year, or do we want to have a lump sum increase? That's certainly one approach, but it is not the only approach that we can bring for researching our community. The city has missed opportunities to bring grants into the businesses and to support our community, Main Street, and other business initiatives. We don't need outside entities to govern our budget. Our council needs to look at that and see how we can be creative.
Thank you. Patrick, same question.
Well, I like John's idea of, going through the budget line by line. I think that's important. That is a function of the city council, as we are, they are bestowed with the responsibility of managing the city's finances. And then, as far as proposing cutting, I'm not just going to say, I'll cut this or that. I think what you need to do is you need to look at what you're spending money on, what's the value of that, and if there's ways to find efficiencies or redundancies, things of that nature, then there's an opportunity to reduce spending. But as Ruth said, I think looking for funding opportunities outside of the city as well is important, and it should be a critical part of the city council's work. If we can find grant dollars or other federal state monies that we can use to leverage the tax dollars that we have here, that's smart government. There's ways to see if we can, get our dollar to go a lot farther. So the budget process is important. It's important for the city and its city councilors to be careful with its spending. to find ways to be efficient, but then ultimately there's the ways that we can leverage the dollars we have to accomplish the many, many goals and priorities of the city.
Thank you. Jean, what costs are in the council's control, and what, if anything, would you propose cutting?
So, I don't know if there's a misconception with people, but last, I believe it was January, we started budget talks and budget workshops. And for about half of the year, until into June, we, on a weekly basis, had at least 1 to 2 budget workshops that sometimes lasted 3 or 4 hours, sometimes 2. Sometimes very late into the evening. So for people to say that we didn't go and look at the budgets and be cautious about how we were dealing with the situations, that's kind of an irresponsible statement. I'm not going to agree with what anybody said so far, because I lived it last year for hour after hour after hour after hour of listening to what the different departments needed, asking them, can you get by without it? When they say no, they absolutely can't, unless they cut people's positions. I just decided that I needed to vote the way I did every time. This year will be more the same, from January until June or July. We'll spend hour after hour that people don't see sitting through budget meetings, and so there's nothing that hasn't been looked at, like people's misconception. It's all been looked at. And we made decisions based on how we felt the need for the community was.
Thank you. Nancy, same question.
I have 3 points on this. I'm hoping I can at least get 2 out in the timeline. I disagree with John's premise. Why would anyone volunteer to serve on a board that works through developing a budget if they know that the council is going to go line by line through it? I think when we've talked about trust, we need to trust the people that are stepping forward and serving on these commissions. Now, there's certainly the final decision with the city board, with the city council, but I want to be clear that people who are putting effort into the councils and the boards that come to this are respected for their work. And secondly, in my time in the legislature, I really came to see clearly, government does not run like a business. It runs like a household. Business has a profit and loss, and at the end of the day, it's judged on net profit. That is not how government runs any more than it's how a household runs. Yes, you need to be frugal. I am frugal to a fault. Yes, you need to manage income and expenses. But unlike a business, a government has, I think we all know the term, the triple bottom line: social, environmental, and economic. And there are times when revenue is down, and that is when you've got to invest more to keep your people safe and healthy. So it's not a business. It doesn't mean that you run roughshod over the finances. I'm going to hold off and hope there's another question where I can hit the third point and not try to tuck it in at the end. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mark, what costs are in the council's control, and what, if anything, would you propose cutting?
Originally, you said, you mentioned that one of the candidates was talking about controlling the price of food, gas, and so forth. Obviously, the council has no say on that. I would like to be able to, but unfortunately, we can't. So having said that, the cost of everything has gone up. The cost of running City Hall, the cost of the fuel to run it, the cost of the employees, and everything else has just skyrocketed in the last 2 to 3 years. And we really can't do anything about it. If we want the streets plowed, if we want an officer to answer our emergency call, if we want a fire department to show up when we call them, and if we want qualified, excellent teachers in our schools, then we have to pay for it. That's the price of living in a service center. Ellsworth is one of 14 service centers in the state of Maine. It's always a little bit more expensive to live in a service center. Out of those 14, Ellsworth has the lowest taxes of any of them. We should be proud of that. Working on a city budget, I've done it 9 times. It's very difficult. We do it line by line. And sometimes we get down into the hundreds of dollars, you know, to spend $100 here or $200 there. That's how critical it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I applaud that statement?
Well, the question is done, so sure. 5. Question 5. Ellsworth is currently preparing a comprehensive plan to provide guidance for the continued growth and development of the city over the next 10+ years. Have you participated in that planning process? Mark?
What was the end of the question? Have I participated in it?
Have you participated in that planning process?
Not in the comprehensive plan, no, I have not. I told my wife a year ago when I was getting off the council that I was going to retire from it, and I did. We traveled, we did things that we never did before. In essence, we've had a ball. And now it's time for me to get back on, but as far as participating in the comp plan, no, I have not.
Okay. Jean, same question.
Can you repeat the beginning of that?
Sure. Ellsworth is currently preparing a comprehensive plan to provide guidance for the continued growth and development of the city over the next 10+ years. How have you participated in that planning process?
I have not participated. I wish I could do more participation in some things, but with the amount of hours I put into my daily job, it just doesn't leave a lot of time. So I'm hoping there are good community members who are doing right and putting together a great plan, and I will see it if I'm elected. Hopefully we'll see it sometime to approve it.
Ruth, same question.
So have I participated in the comprehensive plan for the community? No. This was not my choice. I have a business on Main Street. I own 104 Main Street, which is a 2-story building. When the comprehensive plan was released, or the draft of it, like the resources, my business was overlooked because we are a medical practice, and we were told succinctly that the medical practice should be on the 2nd floor. At no time have business owners, other minority owners, or myself been contacted to participate in the comprehensive plan. We literally had to seek out and answer questions. So have I participated in it since the research and that study was done? Yes, I voted, or I submitted my opinions, but I think that this is a perfect example of why our city council needs to be there for all of the businesses and residents, because there were at least 2 businesses on Main Street that were never consulted. It was assumed that our practices didn't contribute to the Ellsworth business community or the economic community, when just the opposite is true. So I would like to take and see that change. I would like to see all of our businesses have the opportunity to participate in this comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick, have you participated in the comprehensive planning process?
Yes, I have. The planning board actually has been involved with the comprehensive planning process since it really started. We work closely with the city planner on kind of scoping, kind of the groundwork as far as what the comprehensive plan process would look like. Also, members of the planning board are on various of the kind of the subcommittees for the comprehensive plan. So we're participating in that process as well. The comprehensive plan is an exceptional opportunity for the city to vision what it wants to be. They're calling it 2035 vision. So it's a real great opportunity. I encourage, it welcomes all residents of Ellsworth, and if there's a lot of opportunity to be involved with this process going forward. So I've had the opportunity to be involved with the process, and I think if any of you are interested, please, there's plenty of opportunity for you to join as well. And I also note that there's folks up on the stage here. Nancy Smith's doing an excellent job running that process, and so I know she'll say yes to her answer, but it's a great opportunity to meet people in the community and to be involved with what do you want, saying your piece on what you see for the future for Ellsworth. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess we know the answer now. Nancy, have you participated in the comprehensive planning process?
Yes, I have. I am on the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee. I want to let you all know this was a competitive process. There were 10 openings and 17 people applied. We had to make a pitch to get on the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee. I've shared that with my friends who are planners and municipal officials across the state. They've never heard of this before. You had to try to get people to come volunteer. And again, we go back to everyone recognizes this is a point in time for Ellsworth. The 10 of us who are working, there's a genuine camaraderie. If you're interested, the next meeting is a week from, God, it's all kind of a blur at this point. It's the next Monday. We have finished the assets, trying to gather up the assets. Next is visioning. This is very public. The meetings are public. You can come in person. You can come over Zoom. Google Ellsworth Main Comp Plan, and you'll find a website dedicated to it. The public outreach has been very strong. We're doing a mix of public, if you saw us in the Franklin Street Parklet, if you've seen us up at Knowlton Park, and also going to other people's meetings to make sure that voices are being heard. I co-chair the Marine Resources Subcommittee with Brian Langley because I want to understand more about marine resources because it's critical to this community. I co-chair Ag and Forestry with John Stein because I am a forester and I have been a farmer for almost 20 years. I can add expertise and perspective there. So, yes, I've been a part. I want for all of you, have you participated yet? There's still plenty of time. Just Google it and you'll find it. It's an extraordinary process with great people working there, and I'm honored to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. John, have you participated in the comp planning process?
No, I have not. I have a different approach to most of the other people up here, I think. Comprehensive plan is part of a bigger plan put out by the United Nations called Sustainable Development. It was first referred to as Agenda 21. That's now, I believe, Agenda 35. And it's a plan to remove the freedoms and a lot of the private rights that we have as citizens, as individuals, and as businesses. If you go on the United Nations website, you can look at some of the details on it. So I'm for planning, but I'm not for the comprehensive planning the way it's being pushed down from the United Nations group. I think it's a group of people that are trying to destroy America's freedoms, to destroy the republic that we have. So even though I'm for planning, I'm not for comprehensive planning as we're discussing it here tonight. I think it should be looked at very, very cautiously and stayed away from in most cases. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next audience question. Should the city consider limits on short-term rentals? Nancy, do you want to start that one?
Wow, should the city consider limits?
Yeah.
It is really hard to hear you from the lineup here. So please don't start the clock yet. Okay, thank you, sorry.
I can do it again. Should the city consider limits on short-term rentals?
Okay. Number one, we need information. I think gathering an inventory of how many there are. Number two, differentiate between owner-occupied. If you find the way to handle paying for your property taxes is that you rent out a room, or some people move out of their house for the month of August, that's different than commercial developers who are coming in and buying up houses so they're no longer available for workforce housing and using them as commercial properties. We need to know what we're handling here in those two categories. They're very different business models. We can't make the decision about limiting them until we know what we've got. I can tell you from the work I do, the general consensus is 10% is the limit of how many short-term rentals you can have in a neighborhood before you lose your neighborhood. When the house across the street from me sold, I was afraid if it becomes a short-term rental, I don't get a neighbor, I get bachelor parties every weekend. Luckily, that's not the case, but you lose your neighborhood in that way. So let's gather information, and I think a firmer understanding of what the impact is of these. I guess a closing comment is the work I've done on the state level in advocacy. It is in the municipality's power to track them and to put limits on them. We need to decide if we want to. I would also urge a regional approach. As they saw on MDI, when Bar Harbor limited short-term rentals, immediately those commercial developers went out to the small towns who don't have the capacity that Bar Harbor does. So let's look at with our neighboring communities in order to capture that. And actually, there's some work happening where that might come in. Watching to see when I lose time, but there's some collaborative work happening to track housing opportunities on a regional basis, and this is one way to capture that. Thank you.
Okay. Patrick, should the city consider limits on short-term rentals?
Just ditto to what Nancy said. That's why I'm voting for Nancy. I think so. It's a complicated issue. It impacts. Now I can't. There was an article last week in the BDN about short-term rentals and the determination that some parts of Maine it's not so much an issue, but Hancock County it is. And again, I've seen firsthand how hard it is to find reasonably priced housing in this city. And I anticipate that if we look into it, short-term housing, short-term rentals does have an impact on our housing stock and availability. So I'm not saying we just go in there and say, ban it all or have anything like that, but have a smart approach to it and see if, and if we determine, this is impacting the availability of housing for residents of Ellsworth, then we do need to regulate it.
Thank you. Ruth, should the city consider limits on short-term rentals?
I think when we look at the issue of short-term rentals, we have got to weigh certain things that most people don't consider. The first thing that we bring in to the city is that when we're looking at short-term rentals, they're usually for one of three reasons. Tourism with our VRBO, Airbnb, business employees like Jack's Lab is constantly looking for housing for their employees even though they've built extra housing. And we also need to look at health providers. So I am a healthcare provider. I literally have 2 rental apartments that we rent to healthcare providers so that they have accessibility to the hospital. When we're looking at short-term rentals, we're looking at these 3 populations strengthening our economy. Yes, we do have housing issues that can be mitigated through other resources. Short-term housing is not the end-all be-all, but as some of our members have said, for people who are stretched financially, short-term housing pays their tax bills. Short-term housing can meet overhead living costs, rent, utilities, heating, and many other variables that households have. So is it within the city to put limits on short-term rentals? I don't think so. I do think we need to balance our community with the existing rentals and resources. There are many buildings which are vacant, which can be converted into apartments and other facilities. We just have to have the vision to think out the box and make it happen. I've seen this happen for disabled veterans across the country, recycling buildings and turning them into affordable housing for people. So,
Thank you. Mark, should the city consider limits on short-term rentals?
No. That's just another way of asking, should the city step in and step all over the rights of property owners? If I wanted to put a short-term rental unit on top of my garage, and it meets all codes, it meets all ordinances, passes all the inspections, then I should be able to, without the city telling me that somebody can only live there for X amount of days and no more. So, no, I would not be in favor of that whatsoever.
Thank you. John, should the city consider limits on short-term rentals?
I'm having, like Nancy, I'm having trouble hearing it then.
Sorry.
I just want to get the middle word, that's all.
If I look at you, I can't. Should the city consider limits on short-term rentals?
Was the word limit?
Limit,
Still broke up.
regulate.
Okay. Absolutely not. In no way should the city be regulating our own private property. I told you I speak around at rallies with the Bible and the Constitution. That would definitely violate our constitutional freedoms to own property and to express our rights to have that property. We pay the taxes on it, too many taxes here in Ellsworth, but we pay taxes on it. It's ours, and we should have the right to do with it whatever we wish to do with it like that. So absolutely no. It would be another step in the city of over-regulation. I talked with a business person here in Ellsworth this past week that just turned down the chance to buy a piece of property because he felt it was over-regulated by the city and it increased his cost too much, so he walked away from it. He had a deposit on the property and walked away from it. I've talked with other business owners that feel it's not a business-friendly climate. That's just one more step in the nail in the coffin to affect business. So absolutely not. It would violate our constitutional freedoms.
Thank you. Jean, same question.
I am not in favor of it at all. If you need more housing, you need to attract some people to come develop, put in more housing. There seems to be a problem with some of the ordinances, codes, that maybe could be less restrictive, and that would allow for maybe some less expensive building that's still up to code, and that would make it affordable housing. But if you buy a piece of property and your intention is to do it short term, then by all means you should be able to, as long as it meets all the requirements.
Thank you. Next audience question. People are sick of polarization. What is your plan to make Ellsworth function with minimum drama? John, do you want to start that one? Oh, wait, sorry, I'm doing the wrong. Ruth, why don't you start that one? I don't want to mess up my order. Ruth.
this certainly is something that I'm very concerned about as a practitioner. We can't have our community infighting. We have many issues that people feel very passionately about, some on the right, some on the left. And when you look at my materials, you're going to see a very simple quote. The elders teach that when the great eagle flies, the left wing and the right wing must work together. And this same lesson applies to our community and the many issues within it. Somewhere along the line, our citizens haven't been heard, our leaders haven't been heard, and there is a major disconnect. So when we look at polarization, it's a matter of engaging in conflict resolution. It's engaging in positive psychology, and it's developing resiliency between all the parties, holding space for each other, respecting each other, listening to each other. And even if we disagree, we can agree to disagree for the greater good and find a way that meets all the needs. There's been polarization in the public schools. There's been polarization regarding the rainbow sidewalks. There has been polarization regarding businesses and jobs. There's been polarization regarding household issues. It's about time that we realize that we're all in this community and we all need to work together. We can do that by listening, by being there for each other, by going over and having a cup of coffee. I met with one of the other candidates. I treated him out to breakfast so we could start to understand the needs and what we could bring into this community.
Thank you. Nancy, your thoughts on polarization and making Ellsworth function with minimum drama?
Well, it's funny because you use the word drama, and one of my favorite quotes, which is ironic right now, is I like my drama up on the stage, not in my life, and yet here I am up on the stage. I disagree with, I think, almost everything John has said tonight. But I look forward to having coffee with him. If you were here earlier, we were up on stage being a little silly with nerves, and he and I danced. I mean, that's how you do it. I signed up for something in StoryCorps through WERU where they invite you to have conversations with people that you're very different from. I had to outline my political spectrum. And then, what do I love doing? Do I have kids? And what they do is pair you with people you have a lot in common with except politics. They put you together and you talk about everything but politics. When I get together for coffee with John, rather than say, oh, you're so wrong on the UN Agenda 21, AARP and the Girl Scouts of America endorse it. We're going to talk about pets, kids. He lives across from the water in an area I've gone kayaking with my daughter. That's beautiful. Find the things you have in common. I think if the only thing we know about our neighbors is their lawn signs, we've lost huge potential and the loneliness that comes from that. And I'll just say again, the organization that I run, Grow Smart Maine, we have a summit on Thursday, and it's on the epidemic of loneliness and how land use patterns have impacted that. And the man who's the speaker has a book out, and he talks about art as a way to come together. Imagine if we were all given blank paper and colored pencils, or at the summit, we're going to learn how to write a haiku. Let's find the ways to find what we care about. We found it with the pandemic, a common enemy, but can we find ways to find that common ground without a common enemy? Those are my remarks. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Jean, your thoughts on polarization and having Ellsworth function with minimum drama?
Well, I think that I have definitely 100%. I have my opinion. I also see things from all sides. There's more than two opinions even. It's not just right wing, left wing, it's this and that and something else. Everybody has an opinion. And I try to look at everything from all angles. I may not change my mind, but believe me, any vote I've ever done, I've looked at it from every perspective that there is, and then I make my decision. I do it based on the, I'll call it evidence, the presentation that's brought to me.
Thank you. Mark, your thoughts on polarization?
That's the word I'm not getting. My thoughts on what?
Polarization. Disagreements.
Yeah.
Different views.
There are some people that go out of their way to create polarization, to create drama. I swear they do it just to get their name in the paper. And it isn't good for the city. Like most of the councilors that I've served with, I've learned from them, sit back, listen, and ask questions. It's as simple as that. There is no left, there is no right in a council meeting. We're there to do good for the residents with minimal polarization, or whatever word you want to use. Up until a couple of years ago, it didn't exist in the council. Unfortunately, it does now. And it's time for it to stop. People need to grow up.
Thank you. John, your thoughts?
Repeat that, please.
People are sick of polarization. What is your plan to make Ellsworth function with minimum drama?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I've always lived my life by the same principles. I shared with you earlier, I'm a Christian. I'm a follower of Jesus. I trusted him with my soul when I was 26 years old. And I read the Bible every day. I study it. In the Bible, you treat people exactly the same way that you want to be treated. Greatest commandment in there is to love the Lord thy God with all your heart and all your soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. And I try to treat people exactly the same way I want to be treated. As Nancy said, we're probably opposite on most of the issues we talked about tonight. But I just got to know her earlier. We had a little dance step right there. Only thing is, my wife leads, and she was trying to lead too, so I was right at home. But you know, being polarized means you need to disagree agreeably. And I try to do that. There's nothing wrong with being passionate about what you believe in and fight for what you believe in. But when it comes time and the decision goes the other way, I was against the police department location, the way it happened down there. But I was also the first person at the open house to go out and check it out there. And you know, you need to move on when decisions don't go your way. Not everything goes your own way. And just treat people respectfully. I really love people. You know, I met a couple people tonight. I just give them a hug, whether they're a man or a woman. I just happen to love people. So we can disagree agreeably. We can have a cup of coffee. And we can enjoy living in a great community that Ellsworth is right now. And so I have no problem seeing it be a smooth running operation. And as many different disagreements we have, we work through them and we go on. Thank you very much.
Patrick, your thoughts?
Well, it's a very polarizing issue, so sorry. Well, I think it's good to have a sense of humor. But I think really, you know, the city council is a nonpartisan position. You know, we don't have a D or a R or anything else next to our names up here. We're here to serve, you know, because we want to serve the city of Ellsworth. As far as polarization and drama, the job, I think, of an effective counselor is to listen and to listen respectfully. Everyone here, we all have different opinions about things. But if you want to be good, and you want to be a good leader, and you want to solve problems, you listen to everyone's perspective, because somewhere in there is the solution. And you also need to be willing to change your mind. And I think it's important that I don't know everything, I make mistakes, and I'm always learning. So listening, being willing to change your mind, and being willing to learn from each other. That's the great thing. There's 7 people on the city council, and then there's 8,000 or whatever folks that live in Ellsworth. And having people come to meetings, engaging, trying to get information to learn about an issue before you make a decision. If you can do all that, and then ultimately you need to seek compromise. You're not going to get everything you think you want all the time. You may not get exactly what you want, but if you're respectful and you listen and you earn the respect of your fellow counselors in your community, you can find compromise, and then ultimately you're able to solve a problem. And that's why I think we're all up here wanting to run for city council.
Thank you. All right, next question. We touched on this a little bit, or a lot of it, in the short-term rental question, but does the council have a role to play in increasing the availability of affordable housing in Ellsworth? John.
Could you repeat that, please?
Does the council have a role to play in increasing the availability of affordable housing in Ellsworth?
Well, I think the council has a small amount to play in it. I'm a free enterprise, private business person, and I believe if there's a need, the business community will step up and will meet that need for affordable housing. I don't think it's the government's position to be involved with that. I think it's something that's very easily taken care of over a period of time, no matter just whether it's housing or anything else. If there's a need, the business people will step in and will meet that need. Whether it's rentals, whether it's purchasing new homes or renovating older homes, I think it can be best done by the private industry and take that over. I think government, in my opinion, doesn't run anything correctly compared to private business. I think private business is very efficient, very economically run, and always they can make a profit and do what they're doing and still deliver quality products at affordable prices. And I think it's a value we're looking for in housing, and I think it will be by the private sector, not the public sector. So I would like to see the council stay right out of that, let private business take care of itself in that area.
Thank you. Mark, your thoughts on affordable housing?
The council's role in affordable housing would come mainly through TIF districts, tax increment financing districts that would be set up. And some of the tax money paid on those properties is returned to the developer. In return, that property is removed from the state assessment on Ellsworth taxes. So in the end, at the end of the day, whether it's a 10, 15, 20-year TIF plan, it ends up being a wash as far as taxes are concerned. But beyond that, the development of affordable housing comes within the private sector. The city would have no say, no role in developing its own. That's best done to the people that do it professionally, not to the city.
Thank you. Ruth, same question.
I can honestly say I do not believe the council should have a role or take responsibility in increasing affordable housing. What I do feel the council can do is to work with the code, the city's codes, and allow the business and private sector to pick this up. This is not an issue for regulation. It's not an issue for the government or the city government to step in. We are part of a community, but we also have a free enterprise system, and this is why landlords purchase buildings to commit to the community. So it's not the city's responsibility to increase the affordable housing. It falls to the business community and the private sector to create that. The city should not be mandating the taxes on that. They shouldn't be mandating the different aspects of it. Court enforcement. I watched a meeting online a couple weeks ago, and I noticed that the council and the planning committee were talking about regulating additional building sizes. So if you had a garage and you wanted to convert it to housing, they were trying to create mandates of how big this building could be and what you could do with it. And then you bring in city codes as to what's allowable and what's not. I think that's an extensive amount of overreach. I think the city council should run the city and let the businesses and the strength of the private sector come through.
Thank you. Jean, does the council have a role to play in increasing the availability of affordable housing?
No, other than maybe lessening the restrictions that make it much more expensive for a family to build a home or something. I would say they have no role in it. There are some restrictions that are put on in places that seem to make affordability less, and I think maybe you could look at that, but codes that are in place, see if there's anything that make them a little more affordable, but not to get in an active role of that.
Thank you. Patrick, your thoughts?
Yes, the city council can play a significant role in incentivizing housing. I certainly don't think the city should get into the job of building housing itself, but there's a lot of ways the city can help support the construction of housing, at all types of housing, not just affordable. I serve on the planning board, and Ellsworth doesn't have overly burdensome consider. And we also just need to engage with the other communities in Hancock County. This is a regional issue. Bar Harbor does something with short-term housing, which it did, and it impacts us. So communicating with the municipalities in this region and seeing if we can't work together to try to address this issue.
Thank you. Nancy, your thoughts?
I agree with Patrick, yes, and we do every day. Now, not necessarily to own the affordable housing, but certainly to facilitate it. First, we need to define affordable housing. There are different levels, but certainly workforce housing is part of it. And as we've heard, getting workforce that can afford to live in the area is a balance of the salaries paid and what it costs to live here. There are things in zoning and ordinances, and I agree with Patrick. What I hear is that it isn't overly burdensome. I have a friend who's putting an accessory dwelling unit in, and she said it was a breeze. I went in and said I wanted to do. The setback was reasonable. It was easy to do. I agree with John that the businesses are part of the solution, but their goal is return on investment. And when you talk about the cost of materials, their ROI is higher when they do high-end housing. There need to be incentives for the affordable housing. So we need both. We need municipal, state-level regulation and tools, and the businesses who can step in and use them. I agree this is a regional solution. There's work happening now with the Department of Economic Community Development and the Hancock County Planning Commission to have a regional approach for what's going on for housing in here. I'm going to list off a bunch of tools that are available for the municipality. A land bank where you can bring derelict properties back onto the tax rolls and back into housing and commercial use. Thriving corridors is a concept of working transportation, economic development, and housing together so that all three of those are outside of their silos and you're doing them. I mentioned earlier pre-approved business types. Make it easier to permit the kinds of housing that the community has already said, we like that. In this neighborhood, this would work. If the developer wants to build this, yes, the permitting process is easier because we've done the public input process. I agree with Mark on the TIFs as well as a tool. There's a lot we can do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Improving the waterfront seems to be something that is widely supported and talked about for years. Given that there are many viable businesses along the river, how does that ever happen? Jean, do you want to start?
I wish we had more waterfront. I mean, we have a small area and a lot of it has businesses on it, so I can't see going in and taking or buying up those businesses to improve the waterfont. I don't have any answers for it.
John, same question.
Can you repeat that, please?
Improving the waterfront. Given that there are so many viable businesses along the river, how does improving the waterfront ever happen?
I guess I look at improving the waterfront as a private enterprise. It should be handled by the private. If I caught that question right, I wasn't sure. I didn't quite hear the last
I think
time.
what they're referring to is developing the waterfront for recreation, you know, paths and public spaces.
Okay. All right. I appreciate what the City of Ellsworth is trying to do, developing that waterfront. I like the harbor master and everything that's going on down here in town like that. I was at a couple concerts down there. Makes a great place down there. I think anything that we can do to improve the properties that we own right now as a city that can use for our citizens or for people in the community, I'm in favor of. I'm not in favor of acquiring more properties and taking it off the private roll to go into public use like that. So I would like to see private rights done even on the waterfront situation. And if there's things that need to be done, there can be private enterprise that can do it. Again, I believe in private enterprise. I believe private enterprise can do a more efficient job than government in running those things. And the waterfront is no different to me in that situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick, your thoughts on waterfront development?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. What the city's already done is great, and with the trails and the park, and I really enjoy utilizing all those spaces. As far as the commercial businesses that are on the waterfront, if there's an opportunity, I think it's more one of those things that maybe if an opportunity arises where a property's for sale, if the city can get involved with conversations about, well, who would purchase it and for what use? Are there ways where certain properties can be purchased by, nonprofit organizations or a business that's looking to potentially develop it for recreational focused uses? That's great. And so I think if the city can be involved with those conversations, and then again, this goes back to the comprehensive planning process that's going on right now. We have an opportunity to envision what that waterfront will be moving forward, and starting conversations and see if there's the people that own those properties, the people that are interested in using those properties, if there's a conversation to start there, and to see where that goes. But the waterfront is certainly a huge asset for this community. We have some excellent businesses on the waterfront now, and it's something that we should tend to ensure that waterfront is a great place moving forward, and potentially new opportunities to further develop it.
Thank you. Nancy, your thoughts?
Redeveloping the waterfront is a smart thing to do. Quality of life is an economic driver. The first thing we need is a plan. Shout out to Green Ellsworth, which I think has been working on this with Frenchman Bay Conservancy. The ROI for the town would be huge if and when the businesses are willing buyers. There are businesses there that don't need to be there. And it's not about the municipality taking these spaces and taking them off the rolls, but how do we help them relocate to places that maybe make more sense for them, and new businesses can come into those areas. So it's not taking it off the tax rolls at all. But again, the key is talking to the property owners and have this be a partnership. I understand that has been happening and that there were discussions years ago about that. Last point I want to make is safety. I live so that I can walk. I live nearby. I can walk to Harbor Park. And it's not safe to do it. Whether I walk down Franklin Street or up Water Street, either I can do Water Street and there are sidewalks but there's no crosswalk, or I cross where there's a crosswalk but there's no sidewalks, and by Dead River, it's not even, my dog and I can't be side by side. Let's talk about the safety of the access that's happening now for Harbor Park, and then how we can expand it with other businesses that would make sense there for a higher property tax valuation, higher taxes for all of us to benefit from, and amazing businesses in open space that make it part of what it's like to live in Ellsworth. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark.
With the careful and judicious use of state and federal grants, the properties over time, and it will take a long time, a couple of decades, the properties can be purchased at a mutually agreed upon price with the owner. I would be dead set against taking anything by eminent domain. When those properties are acquired, then the reconstruction of the reuse of the waterfront, or repurpose, if you will, of the waterfront can begin. But during the very beginning stages, you have to have a plan, and you have to be continually updating and or changing that plan if necessary. I'm a Union River rat. I grew up on the bottom of Dean Street. At the time, the Union River and the wharf, where it used to be, was our playground. We fished there, we played baseball there, we threw rocks there. Don't ask my brother about throwing a rock through a boat windshield, he won't admit to it. But the waterfront is an enjoyment for all, and I would love to see the people of Ellsworth being able to use it now, but it will take time, and it will take a lot of money.
Thank you. Ruth, your thoughts on developing the waterfront?
Well, I tend to agree with Mr. Blanchett about the use of state and federal grants for our waterfront. I have taken many of my patients down on the waterfront, usually behind the library, to do some therapeutic interventions and Qigong. Some of the things that I've noticed are pollution, things coming from the storm drains, fish kills. So the quality of life that we have on the waterfront is being diminished. I think that when we look at the organizations that are there, they have good starts, but I am very clear when I say that we need to support our private businesses, not to try to get them to relocate, and not to go ahead and tax them out. Rather, we should give them tax incentives to open a path up so people can use that. The park that we have down is a beautiful space, and I know that many people enjoy it, so there is the quality of life. But when we're looking at improving the waterfront, we also need to look at the underlying issues, and that would be what the water condition is, what the life is in the water, and what the riverbanks look like. Because when I see pollution on the side of the water, that's not enjoyable and it's not safe. So I think that we need to support our private enterprises more, work with them collaboratively, offer them tax incentives to open up, and then use those grants to develop safe and sustainable areas for people to enjoy.
Thank you. All right, we're winding down. I'm going to wrap up with a question from a future voter, or I presume it's a future voter. When will the playground be fixed? Nancy, any thoughts?
I actually received this question from a constituent. There are pieces that are broken. When can we have the bathrooms open longer? That's when we talk about critical infrastructure. There's water, there's sewer, there's transportation and roads, but we've got to also be talking about the art and the cultural assets that we've got, and that's the library and the playground. These are things, I'm going to put them in the same category as schools when we talk about where to make our investments. And again, in my time in the legislature, there's a very stark quote, but it has stayed with me for years. When I look, John, you'll like this. I brought my property tax bill with me. 54%, 55% goes to schools, and we can complain about that. But the quote was, you can invest in schools or you can invest in prisons, but you're going to invest in one of them. And that, I think, rings true in what we talk about for infrastructure and the playground. Investments in the library, there's Woodlawn. You think about the things that we love about this area. Those investments are just as critical. And again, for a household budget, you need to weigh the options. You have to figure out where the smartest investments are, but it can be done and it's got to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, when will the playground be fixed?
Well, I've been out of the loop for a year, and not having any grandchildren here in Ellsworth, I'm not aware that there was any issue with the playground.
There's a missing slide, and the splash pad is
But
showing some age.
my good friend Jane is on the council. There are other current councilors sitting here in the audience. I would tell a future voter, get hold of those people, bend their ear, and you'd be amazed, if you talk to them directly, how fast that could get done. Other than that, as of right now, that's the best I can tell you. I know it's not what you wanted to hear, but it's out of my hands right now.
Jean, when will the playground be fixed?
Well, there's no bigger fan of the splash pad than my 5-year-old daughter, Madeline. That's her home away from home. I didn't realize there was anything wrong with the splash pad. I don't go running through it, but my wife and her do.
Oh, thank God.
So I'm not sure if this is something that has been ongoing or if it just happened. I do know that they shut down the splash pad for the winter already, and I didn't know about broken, missing pieces to the slides. But had that been brought to my attention, I definitely would have addressed it. I guess whoever wrote that, get a hold of me, because I want to know what's the issues, because I will try to get them resolved.
All right. Ruth, your thoughts on playground repairs?
Well, my daughter is grown. However, I will look to have grandchildren in a couple years, not too fast. So I will tell you as a practitioner, a few years ago, I had someone call me. Her daughter was seriously injured on the playground. She suffered a serious laceration that went from here to here that needed several stitches because she sat and she fell actually on an exposed pipe. And that should never happen. So I will, just say that as city council members, we need to take and be aware of all parts of the issue, of the community. So definitely the playground is a quality of life issue. It's an infrastructure issue. We can get our community involved. It doesn't need to be done through the city. We can get our community businesses to donate this, to donate that, to create a viable playground for our children. I also didn't know about the water sprinkler and splash pad, but I will tell you that I have a 130-pound dog, and the minute anything comes up at him, he's like running, and if I'm attached to him, I'm flying. But the water sprinkler is something that is very, very popular for children. So we should look to our resources that we have in the community and say, this is the problem. Who can step up and fix this? Who has children? Who has grandchildren? How can we make this a better part for our community? Rather than just saying, we need to fix this, ask who can fix this, who's willing to fix this, and how can we make this happen?
Patrick, when will the playground be fixed?
Well, as the father of a 4-year-old that loves Knowlton Park passionately, I will say if I'm elected to the city council, one of my first orders of business will be to fix the playground. That's it.
John, when will the playground be fixed?
Repeat that question for me, please.
Come on. When will the playground be fixed?
When will the playground be fixed?
Yeah.
Thank you. I wasn't aware there was a problem at the playground, but my kids are all grown, my grandkids are all grown up now. But anything that the city's involved with needs to be safe and needs to be productive for our people here in our community. I'm a big believer in whatever the kids want. I do my best to bend any personal budget or contributions that I have to help young people and help children like that. So back when the YMCA was built where it is right now, my dad and I had bought the Mill Mall property up there. They were trying to get started, didn't have the money to finance it. So we sold it to them for about half of what it was valued at the time to help it get started. So I like Ruth's idea about businesses helping out. Anything for our children, I'm in favor of like that. And I like Patrick's answer like that. I don't have a 4-year-old, but I'd support it 100% too. Thank you.
All right. That's it for this evening. I'm sorry I didn't get to every question, but we plowed through a lot. And thank you for speaking so candidly, and thank you for submitting questions. And follow up with the candidates if there's things that we didn't get to that you want to hear from them. We had some contact information in the paper, or you can grab them here tonight, or I'm sure you can find them online. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, so much for